The year is 710 AD on the southern shores of the Iberian Peninsula. A young soldier has just escaped from his captors. After running all night, he finally arrives at the gate of the fort of the castle. Exhausted, thirsty, and in delirium, he is taken to the king. There, he spews an incomprehensible tale of being captured by demons, twice as strong as a grown man, with skin as black as coal, and with weapons he had never seen. When they ask him who is leading them, he responds with a shaken voice. Tariq el-Malik, the Moor.
It's early in the 7th century AD. The Visigoth, a revival of Romanism in southern Europe, had gained influence and were dominating much of the peninsula. Their expansion meant that they would come into conflict with the Germanic tribes occupying southern France and the north of Spain. By the turn of the 8th century, the empire was in decline, mainly caused by internal conflict between the Germanic administrative elite and the ruling class. So, when the last of the Visigothic kings, Witiza, died, King Rodrigo stepped in to fill the vacuum after a palace coup. His move to secure power wasn't accepted by all. To the north, Achilles proclaimed himself king and allied himself with the people of the Basque region. That wasn't the end of the trouble for King Rodrigo, because soon, to the south, another threat was soon to appear. By the beginning of the 8th century, the army of the rapidly expanding Umayyad Empire was spreading across North Africa like wildfire. This remarkable advance was driven by three major factors: the vast body of knowledge and technological advantage inherited from earlier civilizations, the structured and disciplined nature of their governance, closely bound to religious law, and, in the case of Africa, a formidable host of black African Berbers, who at the time were unmistakably dark-skinned and rapidly converting to Islam. Together, these forces created one of the largest, strongest, and most effective armies of the mid-first millennium. Around this time, Musa ibn Nusayr had been appointed Emir of North Africa, a man whose leadership would soon reshape the destiny of two continents. As Musa extended his campaigns westward across the Maghreb, he appointed Tariq ibn Ziyad as commander of the western operations. Tariq, himself a Berber, was swiftly embraced by the Berber soldiers under his command, and soon forged them into a vast and loyal army, disciplined, fearless, and united under his leadership. Tariq ibn Ziyad was no ordinary man. History records him as a shrewd strategist, a man you wouldn't want to face in battle. Ibn Ziyad was a Berber, and he was depicted like this. By 710, Tariq ordered Malik to begin his forays into the southern Iberian Peninsula. Tariq ibn Malik crossed the strait, the one that would later be known as Gibraltar, aboard one of these boats. By 710 AD, the common mode of transportation for the Mediterranean Moorish forces was the galley, known as the Carib. As you can see from the depictions, its design closely resembled that of ancient Egyptian river ships, and also shared similarities with the Carthaginian vessels that once dominated the Mediterranean. Each galley could carry roughly 80 to 100 men. While we don't have an exact record of its maximum tonnage, it's safe to say that it was a ship of decent size, agility, and maneuverability, perfectly suited for short, strategic crossings such as the one over the Strait of Gibraltar. The West African medieval empires adopted this ship design and improved upon it to allow it to sail in the open sea. It is these modified vessels that were used by the cousin of Mansa Musa to sail to the Americas a few centuries later. Landing with 100 cavalrymen and 400 infantry, Tarif ibn Malik's expedition had one purpose: to probe the southern shores of Iberia and find a safe landing ground for the great invasion yet to come. Tarif ibn Malik promptly concluded his reconnaissance mission and returned to North Africa. Upon his arrival, he conferred with his commander Tariq ibn Ziyad, who presented a portion of the captured spoils to Musa ibn Nusair as confirmation of the mission's success. This gesture signified that the route to Spain, or Al-Andalus, was now secure for invasion. A contemporary Spaniard monk gives us a vivid description of the invaders in a way that cannot be mistaken. Quote, "The reins of their Moors' horses were as fire, their faces black as pitch, their eyes shone like burning candles, their horses were swift as leopards, and the riders fiercer than a wolf in a sheepfold at night." The noble Goths, the German rulers of Spain to whom Roderic belonged, were broken in an hour, quicker than tongue can tell. O luckless Spain! And if the name Tariff sounds vaguely familiar, that is because the port of Tarifa in Spain bears his name today. What happened is that the Moors imposed a special tax on the port of Tarifa, and it became the source of the word tariff.
We're in the port city of Tarifa in southern Spain. In the 8th century, a guy named Tariq came and invaded Spain. The Rock of Gibraltar is named after him. One of his generals, a guy named Tarif, came right after him and invaded Spain as well. The town of Tarifa is named after Tarif. We're on the ferry going to Morocco right now. Anyways, throughout the Middle Ages, whoever controlled Tarifa most likely controlled the entire Strait of Gibraltar, and so they would impose taxes on whoever was coming in and out of the Mediterranean through the strait. Over time, taxes on ships and goods coming in and out of places, exports and imports, became known as tariffs, named after the Spanish town of Tarifa.
Upon receiving the gifts from Tariq ibn Ziyad, Musa ibn Nusair was convinced and deeply impressed. He appointed Ziyad as commander of the expedition into the southern Iberian Peninsula. Soon after, using the pre-selected landing area in the Bay of Gibraltar, Tariq made the crossing and landed on the coast of Spain in April 71, with no more than 3,000 horsemen. As a stroke of strategic genius, Tariq is said to have burned the ships upon his arrival to Spain, sending the clearest signal to his men of their mission, as he himself proclaimed, quote, "Conquer or perish." Tariq wasted no time. His army swept through the southern coast, seizing villages and towns in rapid succession. Within days, he reached Malaga, then pressed north toward Córdoba, the heart of Visigothic Spain. And it is there that the epic Battle of Córdoba was about to take place.
You are watching the Without History channel. Every episode we bring you hidden gems of Black and African history. This episode is a collaboration with Kamjiverse, with contributions from the debunker. Many thanks to the Channel History March for their excellent coverage of the subject. Without History does not accept any sponsorship because we want to remain independent and thus bound to the truth. You can become a warrior for truth by supporting our channels through Patreon and YouTube. But even sharing our videos on sites like Reddit or on your Facebook feeds goes a long way.
There has always been a great deal of debates as to the identity of the Moors and their Berber contingent. Many are confused by the appearance of the Berbers and the North Africans today, a phenomenon that we will explain later on in the video. For now, it suffices to say that the early conquerors of Spain were the Berber Moors, and the man who led the expedition that invaded Spain, Tariq ibn Ziyad, was a Berber. And it is precisely because he was a Berber that he was able to so easily carry the Berber troops to his cause. And what do the Berbers look like, you may ask? Well, we don't have to guess, because there are literally countless descriptions of the Moors in contemporary writings, and they are all consistent. Let me pick two of the thousands that describe them. In the 6th century A.D., in Procopius, History of the Wars, the author contrasts the bandits in his Greek country to the Moors, saying, quote, "Not black-skinned like the Moors, but very white and fair-haired." End quote. Or again, in the 7th century, when in Isidore of Seville, Etymologiae, we can read, quote, "Mauritania is named from the color of its people, for the Greeks call black Mauron. As Gaul is from the whiteness of its people, so Mauritania from blackness." End quote. Or maybe the best of all is this 8th century Latin glossary, which equates Moor to Niger, or in other words, Moor to black. These descriptions of the Moor, I will remind you, are consistent throughout history. From the early days when the Roman used the term, to the days of the African invasion of southern Europe. But for now, carried by his spectacular success, Ibn Ziyad and his 3,000 cavalry are a few days' march away from the great city of Cordova, and the Spaniards are now in full alert. News of the rapidly approaching Africans reached the governor of Córdoba. He quickly mustered his forces to oppose them. Somewhere along the old Roman road connecting Córdoba and Cartagena, the Muslims met the Visigoths in battle and routed them from the field. Tariq ibn Ziyad, in order to gradually weaken the Spaniards, began plundering the countryside. Meanwhile, King Roderic was occupied with fighting the Basques on the northern shore of the peninsula, and only learned about the Africans 2 to 3 weeks after the battle had already begun. He immediately broke off the northern front, leaving only a small retinue behind to hold off the Chila, and takes off for Toledo. As he marched toward Toledo, he issued levies across the country, ordering them to assemble and await him in the town of Toledo. Now, rich with plunder from the sacking of Cordoba and the surrounding countryside, Tariq retreated to the southern shore of the peninsula. He sent reports back to Africa, where Musa ibn Nusayr was thrilled to hear of his success. Governor Musa promptly dispatched reinforcements of 7,000 infantry and 2,000 cavalry. By now, King Roderic had reached Córdoba, where his host had joined with the combined levies from across the country. The king's army quickly swelled to 33,300 foot soldiers, bolstered by the troops of his former rival, whom he had deposed. It seemed that the impending threat from the Africans had, if only for a little while, brought unity to the peninsula. Opa and Sisiberto, both brothers loyal to the late King Witiza, had joined King Roderic in the defense against the Moors. Tariq's reinforcements arrived in late July, swelling his numbers to 12,000, and not a moment too soon. This is just in time, as King Roderic was now quickly upon him in the Sidonia region. Outnumbered 2 to 1, the Berber armies took on a defensive posture, throwing up fieldworks and moats and digging in. Tariq aimed to use his light infantry to exploit any weakness in the enemy's line. Roderic arrived on the plain and personally ordered his cavalry to form the front line, with his retinues positioned on the flanks and a second line of infantry under his direct command. With his men drawn up across the plain and the confidence of numbers on his side, Roderic gave the order to strike. The thunder of heavy cavalry led the charge. Their mission was clear: to smash through the Africans' defenses and open the line for the infantry to flood in and split the enemy in two. Oppa commanded the left flank, while his brother Hisberto led the retinue on the right. Their orders were to press the Berber flank relentlessly, applying pressure until it gave way. But before they met the line, the charge faltered. A deadly rain of javelins and arrows tore through the front ranks, breaking their momentum and sowing chaos among the riders. At the king's signal, the infantry surged forward, crashing into the fray beside the cavalry. Soon the field was a blur of shields and hooves, as men and horses alike braved the deadly rain of javelins and arrows. Far fewer in number, the Berber infantry held their ground, locking shields in tight formation and using the earthworks to force the Visigothic troops into an unfavorable stance. The Visigoths soon found themselves trapped in a stalemate of their own making. Their ranks began to tire, exactly as the Berbers intended, for the earthworks, the shields, the javelins, and the relentless arrows steadily wore down the Europeans. Satisfied with the first phase of his plan, Tariq ordered his concealed cavalry to strike the Visigothic flank. In response, sections of the Visigothic cavalry broke from their line to intercept the attackers. The European horsemen, protected by heavier armor, managed to halt the Berber advance and repel the flanking assault. The withdrawal of the Umayyad cavalry gave the impression of a rout, emboldening the Visigothic line to press its advantage. Concentrating their strength at the center, the Europeans succeeded in driving back Tariq's infantry, causing the inner formations to fold inward. Despite the apparent collapse, Tariq maintained control, issuing commands for the troops to maintain cohesion. The retreat was, in fact, a feigned withdrawal, designed to lure the enemy deeper into the kill zone. The inward bend of the line gave the Europeans the illusion that the Berber ranks were collapsing. Yet this maneuver was part of Tariq's plan. As more of Roderic's forces poured into the narrowing pocket, much of his cavalry became fully committed to the assault. At that moment, Tariq revealed the full extent of his strategy. He ordered his cavalry to re-enter the fray, striking hard at the now exposed flank of the Spaniards. Soon after, the brothers Hisberto and Oppa abandoned the field. Many historians have speculated that their withdrawal was an act of vengeance for Roderic's usurpation of the previous Visigothic king, leaving both flanks fatally exposed. From their elevated position on the wing, the brothers would have seen clearly what was to follow: an encirclement from which few, if any, of the Spaniards would escape. By this point, the Berber horse had swung wide and closed the trap. The Visigothic host was caught between two roaring tides. Tariq, seeing the moment, raised his sword and cried out that victory was theirs, that the land of Spain lay before them. His exhausted men surged one last time. The African onslaught broke the Visigothic line. What began as a battle turned to slaughter. Riders scattered, horses screamed, and the king's proud cavalry fell one by one beneath the blades of Tariq's warriors. History does not tell us Roderic's exact fate in the battle, but what is certain is that he fell by the sword. Some accounts claim he was slain by Tariq himself, though that is likely a tale born of Moorish triumph. Other, more speculative traditions suggest that the king drowned while attempting to cross the river in flight. The numbers tell the rest. Around 3,000 Berbers perished that day, while more than half of Roderic's 30,000-strong army, some 16,000 men, never left the battlefield. This campaign, culminating in this single clash, stands as one of the most daring, tactical, and consequential military victories in human history.
Having now subdued the Visigothic main forces, Tariq ibn Ziyad split his forces into 3 contingents that he commanded to the different corners of the empire. Hearing of the victory of his right-hand man, Musa ibn Nusayr gathered a new army of 18,000 men and made his way to the Strait of Gibraltar. After the invasion of Spain, the Visigoths, the former rulers of Hispania, had either fled or been subdued, leaving the Iberian Peninsula under the control of various Moorish factions. In rapid succession, 19 rulers rose and fell in Al-Andalus, a clear sign of deep political instability. After having conquered Spain by his own cunning, courage, and strategy, Tariq was now loved and respected by the Berber troops, who saw him as the rightful ruler of Spain. Musa, on the other hand, drawn by the fables he was hearing of a fertile land to the north, full of riches and with ready access to European slaves, wanted the Iberian land for himself. Soon, civil war erupted between the arid Berber north, commanded by Tariq ibn Ziyad, and the fertile southern provinces, held by his former superior, Musa ibn Nusayr. Musa was of Yemeni origin, a lineage that, in the early 8th century, bore features far more African in appearance than those seen among later Arab populations.
Musa, the Arab overlord, but let's be quite clear, Yemeni overlord, and Tariq, the African subordinate. An African and Arab conflict would escalate and even blowing up into civil war. So they had to find a ruler who could unite both. And this ruler was Abd al-Rahman I. He's said to have been part Arab, i.e. Yemeni, and part African. So he would have been fully black, in other words.
What started out with Tarif ibn Malik and Tariq ibn Ziyad quickly transformed Europe in the centuries to come. Soon, centers of learning popped everywhere. Their sole focus was to translate Arabic texts into Latin. This is the veritable spark of the European Renaissance that gave us modernism. And it is this unending list of inventions and contributions from the Moors that we will see next week in Part 2. From architecture to the firearm. Now, if you enjoyed this video and want to see Part 2, leave a comment.